Oh, okay. Um, just give me a second. I'm still gathering my thoughts. Um, so, Ben is how would SMEs currently now survive with the COVID-19?
SME survived with the COVID-19.
Yeah, with the
I
current market.
think I think in the current market now, SMEs, the first things they have to do is one is go look at the stimulus packages that the government has given out. Look at all the aids that the government has given out. And then take a lot of time now, right? That you have to start readapting into the environment, because you see right now, right? There's a lot of webinars, there's a lot of talks of strategy. Everybody knows the effect of the COVID-19 and MCO. So everybody talks about the post MCO and the current tsunami, which is a recession that is coming with it and all. So I think a lot of SMEs should start re-looking back into their business and to start adapting or changing to the current situation.
Okay, understood.
Ben, I have a question for you.
Yes, bro.
How are you adapting yourself to the current situation?
Right now, okay, for myself, for my businesses and my companies, right? We all these years, right? We are always adapting one. We're always looking at trend. We're looking at scenarios. So we didn't anticipate this to happen, but we were anticipating somewhat of a downward trend of the economy, and we realized that about 6 years back, right? Technology, right, will come back, and we will have a boom in technology. What we saw in the trend, right, 6 years ago was Southeast Asia will enter a golden era of technology, because when we look at the market at the time, China was leading the way. They were creating a lot of huge platforms and whatnot, but they were not very successful with its globalization. So it's a lot of things, right, has came out from there, but it's only meant for China. Yeah, they failed in their globalization. Whereas the rest of the world on the Western side, they have so much issues. They have so much issues, so much that they cannot. I think they're too comfortable, so they don't really look into the adaptation fast enough. But in Southeast Asia, because it's a natural growing economy, right? All these solutions, right, is where it's best applicable, because we have a big enough market, right? 680 million. So when we look at this, 680 million in fintech is a lot of unbankable accounts. In digitization of the businesses, there's a lot of traditional and businesses that is meant to be digitized. So there's a lot of opportunity. That's why, right, we decide to go into technology. And true enough, 6 years later, today, we literally hit the jackpot, But when the COVID-19 hit, this quickened the entire process, because just 2 years ago only, right? Whatever we were selling, the solutions that we were selling, may it be digital parking or e-wallets, or even digital remittance, even fintech. Fintech, you talk about 3 years back, I think 3 or 4 years back, there wasn't any infrastructure to it, The banks were just very comfortable. The traditional was very comfortable. They were not looking too much of the future. They were not even worried about the future might just disrupt the whole thing. So yeah, the word was disruption. A lot of people were talking about disruption, but nothing was disrupted. But this time round, right, is very different. So once the COVID-19 hit, everybody realized that it's no longer about whether do we need it or not. It's actually we have to do it. So whoever is in technology right now, or whoever is not, right, we should start to adapt and start changing into a more technological business run system.
How about Lucas? How are you adapting to the current situation? And what advice will you have for entrepreneurs who are going to watch this video later?
How am I adapting? I think for my case is a bit different. I'm involved in the F&B industry, and the F&B industry in Malaysia is prior to the whole COVID situation. The whole industry is still pretty old school and traditional, and a lot of restaurant operators or cafe operators, they feel comfortable in that way. Although we have what you call that, new players in the market where they came back from overseas, they got working experience in the West or in China, then they understand that technology can actually play a big part in F&B businesses. But still, before the whole COVID situation, it's very rare to even to even have take for example a Chinese restaurant using iPad to take your orders. So actually, the first wave of disruption in the F&B industry in Malaysia happened when the government implemented GST. Every single restaurant, every single cafe, they are forced to set up or to install a point of sale system in their businesses, in their outlets. Before that, you can imagine a 10 million annual revenue restaurant that can still operate on pen and paper, by writing down the orders on a piece of paper and then pass that piece of paper to the kitchen so that they can cook accordingly. So the first wave of disruption was from the GST implementation. Now we are facing the second wave of disruption. Whereas when I ventured into this F&B business, I actually having some difficulty into implementing some of the you can call it more advanced tools to assist in be it the kitchen operation or the floor operation or even the back-end operation. Because the mindset of the old timers, they are still, like, oh, why do I need iPad ordering? It's so troublesome. I need to bring that iPad along, and what if I spoil that iPad? Is the company going to bear the losses, or I have to fork out the losses? So the change, the mentality to change is just not there. But now, to me, this second wave of disruption is actually benefiting me in a way that I can convince my team instantly. Before that, I need to, like, in Malay we call it pujuk lah. We need to sweet talk. We need to talk them into adopting technology. But now that the disruption wave came and they realized that, oh, things have changed. I have to accept these changes. The new norm is coming. So the whole situation kind of helped me to convince them buying into adopting technology in the F&B industry, in all the F&B operations. Like take for example, that there was a tool that there was a part of the kitchen operation that I always wanted to digitize prior to the MCO. which is the kitchen procurement, and supplier invoicing management. So the traditional way is extremely old school. The chef will need to call the supplier through phone, make the order, and then the supplier would send in the order with a piece of invoice to the restaurant, and then the restaurant would receive the goods, and that piece of invoice need to send to our accounting department, which is not located within the restaurant. You can imagine the turnaround of info. It will actually take like at least a week, from the ordering to the receive of the goods and to our accounting department. That there's a tool in the market where you can actually digitize the whole thing, where the chef can just place order through WhatsApp. The supplier would receive the order through WhatsApp, and the system would capture this order and instantaneously send the info of the order to my accounting department. So from a 1 week turnaround, the info can be just like within the turnaround time would be reduced to 2 to 3 minutes. So from an operational point of view, we would want all this data to be at our fingertips so that we can control our food costs, so that we can understand the fluctuation of our the prices of the raw ingredients, to help us to make better decisions. So, but prior to the MCO, the purchaser or the chef would always, I only know how to cook. I don't know how to deal with IT. This is too advanced for me, giving all sorts of excuses. But we just had a meeting last week, and everybody just bought in the idea, like without much hesitant like before. Before that they were being very IT scary, and now suddenly everybody can be IT savvy. So for the F&B industry, if you don't adopt all these new normal, as we call it, in the long run, you will lose out the competitive edge, because all the current players in the F&B industries, they are looking at Facebook Live, they are looking at tools to help them, digital tools to help them to run the restaurant. They're open up to all sorts of new ideas because of the MCO. Previously, we all are too busy with our own old school style of operation and the hesitant of the staff to adopt new technology. So if there's any new players who would want to come in into F&B, even by looking at such, even if you dare to come in, looking at such a situation, technology would certainly play a very, very big part in your business. Food delivery platform, Facebook delivery, WhatsApp ordering, pre-sell meal packages. Suddenly, like all the F&B players are now IT savvy. So future players, you need to be IT savvy as well. This is how the COVID situation changed the whole F&B industry.
Yeah, share with you all something. Yesterday, a good friend of mine, this Dr. James, is a very good marketing guy. He actually gave us this graph. I just share with you guys. Okay, can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. So prior to the question, Sean, you were asking just now about adaptation. If you look at the graph, in our businesses now, right, on the left-hand side, you see the thing about our business. a lot of people traditionally do business is based on connection, right? But the connection, right? What is the issue of the connection? Is that connections, right? In traditionally, we do business through connections. We have a very big friction. So the big friction, right, is what set us back compared to our competitors. Yeah. So the solution is to actually narrow the friction and look forward towards conversion. Because now conversion is more important than connection. You can have the know who, but if you cannot convert it, then logically then then you're not competitive. So coming to what Lucas has mentioned about the process, right, of adapting technology and adapting into the new trends in the business, in any of your business in different industry, it's about looking into the 5 steps. 5 steps means the shorter the steps you have to convert to your client, the better your business will be lah. So for example, right, first step, if I'm, let's say, selling coffee online, for me, getting onto Instagram and Facebook is really the step 1. For the person to put an order onto Facebook because they like my coffee and they like my webinar, that's step 2. Then step 3 is where they pay, I receive the money, I send the product out is step 4, and then the person receives the product is step 5. So we look back into your business, adapt into shortening the steps. If technology can come in and make the steps even shorter, then your conversion will be higher. Then this will be a successful adaptation, just to share.
Yeah, exactly. That's why on Facebook nowadays you can see a lot of seafood live bidding, cookeries, live shows, and they're actually making a lot of money because Facebook Live is a tool that shorten all the steps that you mentioned. You can the person in front of the camera is you can connect with him instantly, whereas traditionally without live, you would probably need to commute to the shop, meet him in personally and do the conversation and stuff. And from the proprietor point of view, the business owner point of view, one Facebook Live allows him to reach out to like few hundred, few thousands of audience and interact with them at the same time. Whereas you can't actually do that in a traditional setting, a traditional on-premise setting. That is why a lot of business owners or F&B owners, they realize that, okay, thanks to this MCO, they realize that Facebook Live is actually an extremely powerful tool for them to reach out their audience and to close orders all at the same time with a very huge huge customer reach leveraged by the technology.
Okay. Maybe we would like to let someone ask a question. Does anybody have any question to ask? I mean, let the audience ask any question. Anybody got any question here? No one? Okay, so maybe I would like to ask Lincoln a question. Lincoln, how has COVID impacted you as an entrepreneur? And what are you doing to get out of this situation?
Well, I think thanks for the question. I guess for all businesses, it will be exactly what most of us will be facing, challenges of this form. My organization is largely in the whole business of providing data but we have also changed our business model in such a way that we have brought a lot of companies to Singapore to set up their base here, where we take an equity stake in them, and then we help them to establish Singapore, or should I say establish themselves in Singapore as a base, and then use that as a launch pad to go to some of the Southeast Asian countries. So that has helped to kind of weather some of this exposure to COVID. Fortunately, some of companies in this area are still business as usual, of course, minus a few percentage points in terms of the fall in the business itself. But I think I take the same view with Ben and some of you in that most of these companies that I'm working with are in the tech space. And because they're in the tech space, they are more resilient, and they are also able to weather this storm much better. Take, for example, one of our companies actually dealing with IoT from this Taiwan itself. So they're based in the IoT technology here. So it's being used in F&B, is being used in the banking space, everything. But we see that as a great ability on their part to survive. Of course, we have some of these businesses that are much more traditional in nature. For example, things like training. So I think that part is forcing a lot of people to rethink, because suddenly you have a lot of people who are actually going into training. You have a situation where you're a traditional training provider. Now almost everybody is actually going into this webinar. You have a situation where you suddenly overnight you find that competition has increased. Even a simple session like this could be deemed as a training as well. So things have changed for a lot of organizations, so to speak, from what we see in itself. At the end of the day, I think if you say that how we're going to survive, I think generally we will go more into the whole tech space. But I think the key thing is also, I feel that the whole sociology of things are different too, because a lot of things are thrown out the window. A lot of us suddenly realize that actually, although we tahan, but we can actually stay in the house for so long. We also realize that we actually don't need to go to the office as much as in the past, or maybe you don't need to go to the office at all. Maybe after this whole COVID situation, people may go back to the offices, or maybe a good 20% of people may realize that it can be very easy to work from home. So if you work from home, does that mean there's a lower requirement on the part of commercial spaces? Would that mean that real estate prices will decrease, or would they have to be reinvented, so to speak? So there are a lot of things that are going through people's minds at the moment, and yes, technology is one factor, but I think a lot of things are also being changed, as a result, and the questions are still out there, if you ask me. For example, I think if you all watch CNN and all that, you have Trump raising his voice and shouting every day that it is only possible that America should be bringing back all the manufacturing and concentrate here, because this whole supply chain disruption is going to make things very difficult for people in future. So it's better to control everything within you. But then there's also another school of thought. If you speak to some of the traders out there, they say this shows you that this is a once in a lifetime situation, but it is also important to also diversify. So if you put everything all into one state, one country, and something bad happens, that is going to be worse. So essentially, it's showing you how bad things could happen in a single instance, and maybe for you to take protection in terms of contingency plan, so that you don't get into a problem of this nature or magnitude in future. So a thing like whether globalization will fail or globalization will continue, is still very much out there, if you ask me.
Mm. So I would like to get an opinion from all of you. What do you think about all these ads that you see on Facebook right now about companies wanting to help people go online, companies that want to offer their plugins, to restaurants so that they can manage deliveries, right? Uh, do you think are they really helping the SMEs, or are they just capitalizing on the fact that maybe some of these SMEs do not know what to do, right? Because if they have their own delivery platform, then they have to handle delivery, right? They have to manage the drivers and all that. So, and then you also see people that are asking them to just go online for the sake of going online, right? But in actual fact, maybe some of the SMEs do not understand what it takes to go online and how they need to transform their business model in order to go online. Maybe can you share? Maybe start with Ben again.
Uh, um, okay, it's a good question that you posed this because when we talk about digital transformation, right, we have to be very careful. I mean, being a .com pioneer, right, technology is it can be a trend, which is short term, and it may not last long. Right? That's one issue there. So the thing is, if you ask me right now on a personal opinion, or based on what I see online, right, people are taking advantage of the situation. It's actually a trend. Um, Everyone is stuck at home, so everybody jumped into the e-com of delivering vegetables, yeah, selling fish online through Facebook, and then all industry is down. Everybody is dealing with masks and ventilators online, selling healthcare. Everybody stays at home and cook, so everybody is going to start doing cook shows. This is all trend, but if you are an entrepreneur, right, you got to think further than that, At the end of the day, is you can provide all these solutions, right? But all these solutions is how long does it benefit the actual physical company after the adaptation? What is going to come next after that? After 5 years, after 10 years, you know. So it is all down to planning, and I think for any digital transformation, for any SMEs to go into it, you have to be very careful of who your digital consultant is, or your tech consultant is, because bottom line is you can't also neglect your foundation one. So when you plan into adapting digital into your business, right, you really have to have a good game plan. Yeah. Now, when you talk about the game plan, right, what is going to be down the road after 5 years? So is the industry that you're going into, right, does it have to change, or are you going to just follow the trend and jump into something that is very lucrative right now? Yeah. But the lucrativeness, how long is it going to last? So because I just share my experiences, because I've been in tech since the early 2000 days. The internet evolution has changed only in 3 cycles only. Now we're only entering the 4th, very early stage of the 4th. During that time, when people are talking about websites, websites was such a big thing at the time. In only like within 2 or 3 days, right, you find like hundreds or thousands of web developers coming up. Yeah. So then 3 to 5 years later, right, what happened? It's just saturated. Anyone can just build a website. Today, after the 3rd cycle or entering the 4th cycle, what's happening to web development? They are becoming templates. So when what I'm trying to say here is when you start planning into, let's say you want to do web development, you got to go deeper into it. So like now, right? Let's say we have products and we want to sell it as e-commerce, right? You have to go deeper. You have to go down into stages of like studying the client's behavior. What are they buying? Going to tiers of database creation to put artificial intelligence into it. To give more features, to added value features into it. So I think my point here to summarize is don't just follow a trend. Look into a bigger plan. Look into a bigger plan, more longer term plan. And this COVID thing, right, is actually a very short term thing. Even though the vaccine, you give it like 1.5 years before it comes out and things might go back to normal. Yeah, but things will change. Yes, all these things will happen. But don't just plan for this 2 years, right, to adapt into this 2 years trend. You got to plan a little bit further than that. Yeah. Then I think you will survive the so-called recession that will hit. That comes with it. That's my opinion.
Okay, what about Lucas?
I think what Ben said is extremely valid. I personally think that this whole COVID situation, it's like a ski holiday. A ski resort only operates probably 2 months in a year, and a lot of entrepreneurs or entrepreneur wannabe, they rush on. They're trying to so-called get something out from this whole situation, like what Ben said, doing cook shows, selling vegetables online on Facebook. But as true entrepreneurs, we need to look beyond this. This is like, okay, ski resort operates 2 months in a year, but I think COVID is like a 2 years in a decade situation. This whole COVID thing, this MCO thing won't last forever. And when things started to improve, when things are getting better, for sure the demand of buying goods or buying services or whatever online will start to mellow down, whereas the traditional businesses will start to revive. Probably traditional businesses won't be back to the level that they are enjoying before, but things will get balanced out, after the whole when everybody is allowed to move around freely once again. So as true entrepreneurs, you need to look beyond this. You don't just look at this month, next month, or in the next 6 months. Like when we do planning, we are planning for 6 months and beyond, like annual plan, 5-year plan. That is why some advice to newcomers or entrepreneur wannabes don't just rush into it, because it's like a gold rush situation. Everybody rush into it, and I have to do it because I want to get something out of it. But that is not, to me, that's not entrepreneurship. That is just like taking opportunity of the situation. It's like buying numbers, buying those lottery numbers. Another thing is technology, like what Sean asked earlier. Those people who's advertising aggressively, trying to get businesses to sign up for their services, to digitize their businesses, to build websites for them. When I was still with my IT consultancy days, I always advise my clients that technology, no matter how advanced the technology is, at the end of the day, it's just a tool. It's like a weapon, you need to learn how to use that weapon, how to operate that weapon, and you need to know in what kind of situation, how are you going to utilize that weapon. The gun will not kill for you automatically. You need some sort of strategy, you need some sort of operational tactic to make use of the weapon. So a lot of non-IT savvy business owners, they thought that, everybody is going online now. I just need somebody to build website for me, and then orders will just start, pouring in. If a technology solution provider is telling you that, I think most likely he's trying to, he's just an opportunist, I would say. So that is one of the very common pitfall, for a non-IT savvy business owners trying to invest into technology, especially SMEs, because SMEs, they are not so exposed, to all this information. So have to be careful, I would say.
Just to add a little bit on to this topic, the current situation that we are going through now, what we call normalization. This just now, Lincoln, you were talking about offices, retail offices, commercial property. What's going to happen after the MCO? The thing is, if now we're going through a normalization where before this, right, all of us were running everywhere, chasing, fighting in the ladder of the society, into the entrepreneur society world. That we forgot, right, that once the MCO hit, it's like a reset of a world lockdown. Everybody sit at home. Suddenly, right, they realize to a majority of people is that their workload is actually more optimized. Their time spent is actually, that the time management is actually more effective right now. So when you talk about the worries, let's say after this, when the thing is lifted, everybody go back to the normal world again, right? But there will be changes. Yes, people will have smaller offices now. There will be more opportunities of working at home, but that not necessarily, right? It will actually kill the commercial property market. It won't. But what I think, right, is going to happen, right, is there's going to be very creative spaces that is out of the norm that will be created. That means the space will be used, right, or utilized in a much more creative manner. So it will allow, right, even more entrepreneurs or even more individuals to become an entrepreneur. Because now, right, to start a business, right, I don't need a 10,000 square feet office, but I still need probably an 800 square feet office. Because whether we like it or not, we are humans, one. Today we talk about current only. But when you think on a long-term basis of 5 years later, you still need to go to an office one. Now the virus, everybody's scared. Later on, people don't want to meet. But eventually, you still need to go back to an office. Just like on the retail side, people might downsize their retail stores. They might downsize a lot of things. But at the end of the day, they still need the physical presence. So because of this, what do? One of the things that Zara did was they transformed their physical outlets into logistic outlets. So you do your higher sales or your so-called alternative market, that your e-com market, right, will be much bigger because you have a wider reach. But eventually, right, you will have very high cost to change product. Therefore, you use the physical store for people to come back and exchange the product. Maybe the clothes couldn't fit or there was a damage on the goods. Now that is even cheaper than what we call return goods, off and on. So again, right, I think that it's all about the planning. It's all about the creativeness of doing changing your way of thinking on the business plan. Yeah.
So, how do you think people should cope in a market where people are not spending?
Why you say people wouldn't spend? Because naturally, right, people will spend. It's just about you know, how much are they willing to spend on it? So now, right, if I, okay, let's talk about, I mean, let's talk like a businessman. Yeah. We look at things very macro and then only we work our way down to the micro. Now, when there is a downturn or a bad time, there's always the opportunity that arises. So now, with all these things happening, right, people always say that everyone's going to be very conservative. Yes, people will be conservative, but it only means a shift of spending. It doesn't mean that they won't spend. It's a shift of spending only. Now, when you're conservative, what do you do? Why is it certain industry will boom? Why is the insurance industry booming? Why is the investment industry booming? Because when I can't spend my money, I still need to make money, right? So therefore, I look into alternative things. Now, given a case study, I realized the insurance company did something very interesting. Like right now, most of the insurance agents are benefiting from the MCO. Number one is they don't need to travel anymore. Their expenses drop to almost zero. Everyone is stuck at home. So all their prospects now is one-to-one based on a video conference or a WhatsApp video call. You know, so now you can have full attention of that person. Plus that person will be very willing to talk to you because then nothing else to do already. So what do they do is now number one is the between the prospect and the salesperson, right? The gap may be this far because you cannot meet face to face. But now because of technology, right, it's like even closer than compared to when you are supposed to meet them, yeah, buy them coffee and then convince them of buying the insurance. Now the second thing, the insurance company, what they did is they started to come out with very interesting investment products backed up with the insurance. One of the things that I saw what AIA did was very interesting is they realized above 70 years old, there is actually a big market of people who don't have insurance. And it's because they are very high risk above 70. So what they did is they start to work with technology players, the fintech players. They work with the crowdfunding guys because the crowdfunding can now open up and take in funds from the crowd, right, from the public, and underwrite a portion of the risk with the insurance company. And then they can take on this and have and cover the high risk person. Because the high risk person, for example, 70-year-old uncle want to do an operation, cost him 150,000. So the insurance company, right, say, okay, now mind, we give you an insurance coverage of up to 200,000. So we will cover the 150,000. Okay. So they will take on 50% of the underwriting, and the other 50% will be taken by so-called like a loan. And who will guarantor this is the children of that uncle or the relatives of that uncle. So this way, right, the risk is shared already. So again, what I'm summarizing, what I'm trying to say is, you see how technology, right, with traditional business, right, when you are creatively think of out the box to merge together, right, you come up with very interesting products. And it is when this thing happen like this, you realize that even after the MCO period, right, I think there will be also a balanced one. Traditionally, insurance agents would like to go out and meet their clients, but this time I think they will spend more time at home or in the office to actually talk one-to-one to all these prospects, but only to meet the client because of what we call a social relationship or a social psychology. Because it's personal, I meet you to sign the documents. Yeah. So these are very important kind of like psychological points to look at, right, in terms of adapting into the situation today.
Mm.
Yeah.
Does anyone wants to add to what Ben has just said?
I don't know. I feel that maybe the Singapore and Malaysian situation are quite different. I guess most of the F&B folks here are from Malaysia, right?
Yeah, it's
because
from Malaysia.
yeah, because I think I think the Singapore F&B folks who I've spoken to seems to be a bit more fatalistic. Uh, you're obviously are having a few ideas here and there from my perspective, uh, and maybe this is due to the COVID measures that the different governments are putting in. I understand that, for example, Malaysia has called for a moratorium on loans for 6 months. I think that's quite substantial. Here, I think in Singapore, until recently when they came out with the ruling, a lot of them are renting, and most of them are still unable to wrestle away the fact that they can't afford to pay the rent, and the government has come in. Of course, now that this whole thing is going to be extended to June for Singapore, again, we do not know what that means for the business. But again, going back to what Sean was saying, is that it's again this a comparison between Singapore and Malaysia as well. I think in Singapore we are small, right? If you talk about the average retailer, uh, it's always about face-to-face business for a very long time. Of course, with the apps and all, it changed certain things. But one of the things that we talk about this was that a Singapore retailer never had to worry about logistics. If you look for the longest time, and not even in this current era when we're talking about well Tmall and Taobao and all these things, right? Uh, Singaporeans never had to worry about selling something and then having to ship it to another location. Most countries, I think, uh, big or small, have to counter that. So so I think with the onset of things like e-commerce and all that, Singapore also didn't take off that quickly as compared to other countries, partly because of the logistics issues, which I happen to notice. I don't know, is that a fair statement? But I felt that we we are more challenged in Singapore in that regard. Now, going back to the F&B scene, I don't know, maybe there is a lot more pressure for an average F&B operator in Singapore because of rental, because of a slightly compressed market. I don't think it's a fair statement, maybe because in Malaysia, maybe bigger population, but you also have more competitors. But I just felt that maybe I don't know, maybe the Singapore side, I just felt that I don't know whether the statistics are the same. F&B businesses has one of the highest death rates in the whole of this business community in Singapore. Maybe it's the same in other countries. I don't know, but the Singapore ACRA, right, which is the equivalent of SSM in Malaysia, run the statistics like I think something like like easily 2 out of 3 businesses will die in 3 years or something like that in the F&B space. So just my thoughts and views on this.
Yeah,
I think you're right,
actually,
Lincoln. You're
yeah,
right
you're
in the
right, you're right. Yeah,
cultural differences.
yeah. Your statement is totally fair. Just
Yeah.
that probably the rental portion of a typical I mean out of the operating expenses of a typical F&B business in Singapore, probably the rental portion is would be higher than a typical F&B business in Malaysia. Our rental is relatively cheaper if you compare with the rentals in Singapore, and our F&B scene over here is actually pretty dynamic. We have a bigger population. We have a larger, landmass. So, um, to be honest, a lot of F&B businesses in Malaysia currently, we are facing a huge challenge ahead. Rental wise, not all not all landlords are actually giving rental discount or waiver. Not all. The government is just encouraging. The government is not mandating all landlords to do so. This is one thing. second thing is about I think probably Malaysian business owner are a bit bolder in this in this matter. Like you know, F&B is a cash daily cash collection kind of business. You know, you collect you do your sales on a daily basis and you collect cash on a daily basis. So a lot of F&B business owners, they will actually take risk, like by gearing their borrowings to a very scary ratio, because they rely on the cash flow coming in daily. So when MCO hits, or even before MCO, when COVID hits, a lot of F&B businesses or retail businesses that actually start feeling the pain, you know, because when your cash flow is reducing day by day, you will have a hard time paying your suppliers and your creditors. Whereas I'm not really sure about how Singaporean businessmen doing business, but probably you guys have some cash reserve, I think, in general. So the situation here in Malaysia is, if you have cash reserve, you'll be fine, you know, because your running cost is lower, your rental is lower, even if the landlord is not giving you a waiver, but you could probably negotiate for 30%, 40%, 50% off, and your staff cost is relatively lower. So if you have a cash reserve, you can probably last longer than the MCO. But the problem is, based on my observation, it's not an official statistical thing. I think a lot of F&B business owners or retail business owners, they are relying on the daily cash flow instead of living on or instead of running business on a cash reserve kind of concept. Yeah, this is the danger that has yet exploded from what I see. But of course, as entrepreneurs, we have to stay positive always. You know, we have to find ways to get out, get ourselves out from all sorts of difficult situation. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to do a comparison on who has the highest survivability in between the Malaysian F&B owners and the Singaporean F&B owners, I think we are pretty much on the same boat. Yeah, I think we are pretty much on the same starting line.
I also think that in Malaysia, F&B is done quite differently. If your place is big enough, people tend to do a lot of networking events there. Whereas Singapore, there's much lesser this kind of networking events, and there's a reason why there are a lot of ballrooms in Malaysia compared to Singapore, because there's a lot of organizations and associations that like to hold their gala dinners. Okay, so I think this has been quite an interesting session. I hope everyone learned something from it. We are going to upload it to Facebook. Any parting words from anybody here? Anyone have any parting word?
Not really, but I do have a question though.
Great.
Just last question actually. Just came out of my mind. Actually, Lucas, this is directed to you. I just wanted to ask, the F&B business, didn't it like increase due to because of the MCO? A lot of people are unable to go to the physical shop to get the items. So didn't that create a bit of a demand from them after the 2 weeks, the first phase actually?
I think in Malaysia is a bit okay. For the first week, during the first week of MCO, we are. I mean, for all my restaurants, we are still operating just for the sake of doing food delivery. But after the first week of MCO, we actually shut down some of our restaurants and just. I mean, because I think in Malaysia, the population is not as concentrated as it seems, you know. Everybody is sporadically living in somewhere else, especially in smaller towns and smaller cities. So food delivery doesn't really, it won't be profitable for a restaurant to rely on food delivery, to rely on the profit of food delivery business, the segment. So it makes more sense for us to shut it down rather, so that we can, you know, negotiate lower rental and probably negotiate lower salary from the workers, rather than keeping a high cost to operate just for the sake of food delivery. This is one thing. The second thing is, I think the Malaysian culture, everybody has a kitchen at home. I think buying our raw ingredients are relatively cheaper if you, you know, buy from a restaurant. So throughout the whole MCO, raw ingredient suppliers or maybe wholesalers, like those people selling vegetables online, those people selling seafood online, their businesses actually got better, not the restaurants,
I see.
but the food suppliers. Because our suppliers, they even like started to supply to normal customers, to household customers. We can't really blame them, because we couldn't provide the same kind of volume as before. And to survive, you know, they need to lower down their vertical, and they have to sell to household consumers. And and if you are being locked down at your home, you know, you've got nothing to do, obviously you start finding things to do. And when you got hungry, the first thing came across your mind should, of course, would be, let's try, you know, I would like to cook something today for my
I
dinner.
see.
Yeah, it's very natural. One funny story is my partner, in fact, my biggest partner, like in the business, he hasn't really cooked before, prior to the MCO, throughout his 38 years of life. And during this MCO up to today, he cooked 30 dishes. And those are not like just Maggie me kind of dishes. Those are like with some standard lah, you know, with some difficulty. He himself, he's like, it's like a revelation to him as well. It's like, oh, so I can actually cook, you know. Before that,
I see.
for the past 38 years, I've never thought about that. But because of MCO, he started trying, and then he just got a hang of it. So throughout, you see, he's not like, I mean, he's a very rich person. Of course, he can afford to buy takeout, you know, to order food, but you got nothing to do at home. So might as well take cooking as a hobby or a pastime activity. That is why throughout MCO, some of the restaurants, not our restaurants, but some of the restaurants, they can barely maintain the same level like before, because prior to the MCO, they have a strategy for food delivery already. You know, the strategy has already been in place before MCO. And they were very quick to pivot by offering home kits. You know, like my Burger Lab, they are offering, you can make your own burger at home. Like the Penang Teochew Chendol, which is a good friend of mine, he started this. You can make your own chendol at home. You know, you buy the ingredients and the kit from him, and then you do it at home. So this is the thing that that can sell during the MCO. But of course, the question is, will this be a sustainable product after the MCO? This we need to put a lot of thought into it. That is how restaurants are changed during the MCO. But certainly, if you are talking about a restaurant who just rely on takeaway and food delivery during the MCO, for sure, the sales level has to be lower than before, for sure.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean, any questions from other guys?
Nope, I don't see any questions from them. Okay.
Then I was thinking of asking Lincoln. Lincoln, let's
Yes,
shift
sir.
the topic a bit lah. Let's go into fintech.
Switch the what? The topic or switch the business?
Choose a topic.
The topic.
Oh, yeah, no, because I've been looking at the fintech business in this Malaysia lah. That's the reason, but uh, not sure what it takes to be in it because we are in talks at the moment, still talking about how a particular investor wants to feature in Malaysia because Malaysia is a much better market, we feel, as compared to Singapore itself, and using a little bit of data and analytics to do the lending. So a few things, because we actually are quite familiar with SSM. You all know SSM, right? And you may know people like, you must know this company called My Data. Yeah, My Data. So met the CEO and all that, trying to do a few things, trying to talk about it. My Data people, you know their background, right? They are actually the people who are related to this Syed Mokhtar. I think you know the Syed Mokhtar people, like. So looking for new things lah. I mean, we spoke to them about 2 years ago, but then things didn't go according to plan, and of course now, when there's a crisis, everybody is coming into that mode. So actually, looking for all these fintechs to acquire, initially I thought that we don't need a license, but now that we find that there's a license required, then of course acquiring or co-applying will be the next thing to look at, and then making use of data from this the registry will be something that we are looking at as well, because we have a technology partner from China. Yeah. So that's it.
Because fintech is so general,
Mm.
and lending is something very important. Financing is something very important. Everybody, when they talk into fintech, they always talk about this particular topic. So in a very specific area of fintech, right? Which would be the area that you're looking into on the SME financing, or what other areas are you actually looking into?
No, good point. I don't think you're wrong to say that. In fact, when we talk about lending, it's always very general, or maybe too, should I say, too wide range in that sense. Our focus area there is basically financing SMEs with trading capabilities. So not any. So maybe in this case here, F&B probably wouldn't be our target market. Why? We are looking at those with trading information, so that we can use the data to understand how they are performing. Because with trading information also comes with receivables. Again, depending whether are you buyer or seller, because we are looking at the receivables part. Because there's another part of our business where we take a lot of these receivables, we package them into bonds, and then we structure them, and then we list them on the market. So this is not done by me, by another partner of ours. We are a non-bank that bundle all these receivables. We call it securitization, and this securitization are basically what we call short-term papers, or what we call the CP, the commercial papers. So these commercial papers are almost as good as cash, because they're unwinding in nature. But of course, right now things are a little bit hazy, because when we're talking about all this thing at the time, interest rates were still okay, which means that well, I wouldn't say it's okay, but let's say for example, if you're holding euros, for example, euros for 6 months tenure is actually negative yield, a bit like oil right now. I think we're approaching the kind of situation, because holding assets is not good, even to the point I think a lot of financiers are seeing that already holding cash is not a good thing even because there's a cost to it. So short-term euros at 6 months are actually negative yield. So people are looking for yield, but what kind of yield? You don't want a certain situation where you get into an asset and then you lose half the value. No point. So those receivables have to be, of course, very clear in terms of what the risk profile is. How do we bundle it together with trade insurance or credit insurance, as they call it, and then have all the things in place so that these investors are keen. So I think totally agree with what you said earlier on, Ben, about Asia. I think we're still very bullish about Asia. There's still a lot of hot money chasing after Asian assets at this point in time, or Asian opportunities, because things in Europe was bad before COVID, and I think it will get worse. Italy's economy is already, you know, in doldrums. That's why they are cooperating with China in the One Belt One Road. So these are the things that we see lah. So back to the topic is that we don't see ourselves lending across the board to any Tom, Dick, Harry. That'll be too big a plate because I think that's the job of the commercial banks. But we are specifically looking for those that are exporting in nature.
So Lincoln, what are the challenges that you face when you go into this business?
Okay, I have to tell you that I've not gone into the business, right?
Oh.
Because we are now partnering with a party again, still talking. But basically, they have the funds, so we are keen to work with them. But definitely, we notice the challenges. The challenges at the end of the day is about data. And it's the same thing as what we're doing. Whether is it marketing today or whether is it this or that, it's about the accuracy of the data, because the accuracy of the data allows us to do certain things. In this case here, like what you already pointed out, it allows you to reach out to the right customers. For us as lenders, we have to avoid the losses. Losses is one thing. At the beginning, there's even fraud, right? Because who are these people? Are they real? Is this ABC Seram Berhad real, or is it being set up to con people like us who are willing to lend them money? And there are. It's nothing to do with whether are you Malaysian or Singaporean or Thai. It happens everywhere. So you have to make sure that your data is there to tell you that it is safe to lend to this group of people. So this will be our main challenges. The other thing, of course, is not really a challenge, but I think it's opportunity. But the fact that when you want to reach the opportunity, like taking all your receivables and structuring them, you got to change mindsets. You got to get people to understand that they can turn their assets or receivables in this way into cash. And that is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, so to speak. So we are seeing that in this area itself, and the funds are coming from China. So you and I know that that's still the place that is doing quite all right. I mean, although here and there everyone has an all cut here and there, but they are also the ones that are still standing quite strong, so to speak.
Right.
Okay.
One question for Sean.
Oh, yes.
I have a question for you. So in the fintech industry, there are so many e-wallets out there, and right now, right, there's going to be a big boom of e-coms and digital businesses from individual to groups and conglomerates. So how is Snap relatively added value now to all these things?
Oh. Okay. So maybe for those who don't know what Snap is, just a quick one. Basically, I've monetized all the QR codes in the world. So basically, anyone who takes Snap and scan any QR code, they earn points, and these points are money which they can spend at any of the merchants. The other thing is when you invite a friend, you earn a lot of points and you override their future spending. And that's across two levels. So now to answer your question, actually, the more e-wallets there are, it's better for me because my focus is to integrate to all e-wallet so that when people scan a QR code and pay using Snap, they are able to select whichever e-wallet they have. So my platform connects to all of them. It doesn't really bother me. I think what COVID has done is that it has tried to force and really force people to embrace digital payments. In fact, I've seen people who have fear, in fact, handling physical money, right? Because you're afraid, right? Whether it contains the virus, and then there's fear of that. It's a real fear. I think there's a lot of data out there, but people may not know until we've done extensive research that maybe in some of the countries the virus is actually spread because of the handling of money. Yeah. Right. So we've reached 10 o'clock, guys. Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
I hope we will have more engaging sessions with the audience in future. We will try to create a better format, and get people to participate more. So thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
thanks, Lucas. Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
Princeton, everyone.
everybody.
Hey, thanks, Sean, for
Thanks,
hosting
Lincoln.
this.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, Lucas. All right.
Thanks. Bye.